And we are live here from the wonderful Sports Link studio in Muncie, Indiana. This is the HB Toss, made possible by the creative storytellers of Ball State Sports Link. I'm your host, AJ Swiatek, alongside Ryan Stojetz. And Ryan, given all the crazy news going on in the NFL, I'm sure we're in for a good one.
Oh, we definitely are. I mean, you said it, just so much crazy news about the NFL in this current climate that we're in. We just had the trade deadline happen, and now we've got an exciting slate of games coming up. So yeah, lots of fun stuff to get into here today.
Certainly an exciting time to be an NFL fan, and no better time to watch the HB Toss. We'll get into our first segment, and Ryan, you mentioned the trade deadline. We're going to go into hot takes. I know your first one has a little something to do with it.
It does, because it involves Chase Claypool, who was just traded from the Steelers to the Bears, and I think he has a big day in his Bears debut. For my first hot take, I am saying that Claypool goes for 100-plus receiving yards and has a receiving touchdown. I know, again, but hey, they're hot takes for a reason. So I just think that with Justin Fields, he's been playing well lately, and we know he likes to stretch the field. He likes to throw that deep ball, and he feels that he can do it. And with Claypool, like, this guy's a deep threat. He can go and win those 50-50 balls. He did it in college at Notre Dame. He did it in Pittsburgh. I think Claypool was just beginning to be underused and kind of left out in that Pittsburgh receiving core. It was more the Deontay Johnson show, and even at times George Pickens, the rookie out of Georgia, seemed to overtake him in Pittsburgh. So I think that a fresh start and a change of scenery is really good for Claypool. I think he has a big day in his Bears debut, and him and Justin Fields get that chemistry going right away. So 100-plus yards and a receiving touchdown for Claypool this week.
Certainly, and I mean, it can't be understated. The Bears, they paid a lot for this guy. Second round plus. I mean, essentially, they got him a fifth-round pick in the linebacker for Roquan Smith. So it went to show how much Ryan Poles and company cares about Justin Fields, how much they want to get him surrounded. You mentioned he's been playing good ball. I mean, in terms of the 2021 rookie quarterbacks, I mean, he's probably looked the best in his second year. So Fields, it's starting to click. I could see it happen. Who knows if the chemistry comes in that good right off the bat, but crazier things have happened, and I've got to tell you, my hot take might be even hotter. Give me Zach Wilson. Give me the New York Jets. Not only are they going to win at home, give me them to win by 7+ over the Buffalo Bills. Zach Wilson coming off arguably the worst game of his career. 3 interceptions, none of them were pretty. Off of his back foot, one attempted to throw away, and that third interception, I'll tell you, I don't know what he saw. That one was just in the quadruple coverage out there. But he's got the scrutiny. He's hearing it from the New York media, and Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, this entire team, they're still bought into Zach. They have showed that this is their guy. They're going to roll with him. And Zach, for him, he just has to play mistake-free football. He did for the past 4 weeks. Of course, not against New England, but I think that this Buffalo team, they're getting credit for being a lot better than they are. The Jets at-home division game, I think this is one of those trappy-type games. It'll stay close to the end, but Zach Wilson, he's going to lead them past.
Well, I mean, you know, again, we say they're hot takes for a reason, but just truly with the way this NFL season has gone, you know, that wouldn't surprise me too much because there's just been upsets and chaos left and right.
Right. I mean, just about anything goes this NFL season. The 8-0 Eagles still not even being respected as the #1 team. A lot of people think the Bills, they're the best team in the league. I think that will go away after this week. The Jets will walk away with a win. Yes, I'm a Jets fan. Maybe a little biased there, but Zach Wilson, coming off of a bad game, he still generated 9 explosive throws in that game, 2 his 3 turnovers. If he could cut down on the mistakes, it's just all about taking the easy play for Zach. If he could do that, I like this Jets team to, at the very least, keep it close. And Ryan, we've both got one hot take left. I'll let you go first. Which other one you got?
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the NFC North, and I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense, they're finally going to get it together. Aaron Rodgers has had a lot of success against Detroit in his career. He's 18-6 against them, so he certainly loves playing in Detroit. And I think that what he's going to do, he's going to throw for 300-plus yards and 3 passing touchdowns. And I know that might sound crazy because that means Packers receivers actually have to catch the balls that Rodgers is throwing to them. But I think that we're at that midpoint in the season. Some chemistry has to start to come together for that Green Bay offense and that Green Bay receiving group. So I think this is the week against the Detroit defense that really has struggled. I mean, truthfully, with the Lions, their offense has put up some great numbers in some games. And even their last game against the Dolphins, their offense got out to a early lead, but the defense just could not hold up and get the stops when they needed them. So I think Detroit's defense, and especially that pass defense, is something that they can really exploit. Rodgers is successful against Detroit in his career, and he really has been since he came into the league. So I think Rodgers throws for 300 yards, 3+ passing touchdowns. And a guy that I really look at when I look at that Green Bay receiving core, I look at Romeo Doubs because we saw some of that potential on Sunday night. He had that incredible catch. So I think that maybe, just maybe, this is the point in the season where we finally start to see Green Bay and their offense look like how they were in the years past when they were going into NFC championships and stuff. So Rodgers, 300 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. We'll see if it happens.
Right, and that's one where you mentioned how crazy this NFL season has been, because going into the season, Aaron Rodgers, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Lions.
Yeah, wouldn't be too bold.
That's a lock. But Aaron Rodgers has not looked like himself, but certainly things to be excited about in Green Bay. You mentioned Romeo Doubs. I mean, people forget this is the second wide receiver the Packers drafted. Christian Watson still looking to get healthy. I mean, they've got guys in the mix. They've got a really good backfield. I like Aaron Jones. I like A.J. Dillon. And honestly, I like that take. I think Aaron Rodgers, they've got to get back on track at some point. He didn't come back for a last dance to have it spoiled this early in the season. He hasn't looked the same without Devontae Adams, but eventually it's got to click for the back-to-back MVP winner. Ryan, I've got one more hot take. I know you're a Texans fan. We saw them lose on Thursday night, right? So 3 more teams left in the AFC South.
Yep.
The Jaguars, they'll play the Raiders. You know, the Colts, they're going to play the Patriots in New England. And for the Titans, they're going to have to go to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. I don't think the AFC South is going to walk away with a single win this week. We already have the Texans lost, 3 more to go. I mean, both South divisions, with the way Tom Brady's been playing, it feels like they can't find any good quarterback play. Trevor Lawrence has not lived up to expectations. Davis Mills, I mean, you've mentioned it. It feels like whenever the Texans have to pass, Texans fans are holding their breath, quite frankly, because Davis Mills is likely not the long-term answer there. And then you look over to Tennessee. They tried the Malik Willis show last week. He didn't look great. Sam Ehlinger now starting for the Colts. I mean, it's just a QB carousel down there in the AFC South, and until they start to get it figured out, I just don't see them picking up many more victories for the rest of this season.
Yeah, I like that take, and it reminds me of Week 1, where that scenario happened, where the AFC South didn't win a game, and the unique thing was
they had a couple of ties.
Yeah, 2 AFC South teams played each other, and the AFC South still couldn't eke out a win. So yeah, AFC South, they're going to send someone to the playoffs, but yeah, as a Texans fan, I know very well it's not a very strong division. So I like that take.
Certainly, and I'm going to hold that thought right there, Ryan, as it is Tanner time. Our sideline reporter, Emma Potter, is with the Cardinals' star tight end, Tanner Koziol, to talk some football. Emma, take it away.
I'm here with tight end Tanner Koziol. Tanner, do you have a fantasy football team?
I do.
And what is the best player on your team for you this season?
Didn't draft well. Picked up Taysom Hill. He did pretty solid for me. I have no one good, though. But it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. We're going to make some trades and get going, hopefully.
And what is your record this year?
2-5. But, again, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Thank you. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Emma. And a big thank you to Tanner Koziol. I mean, Ryan, always interesting to see a player of his pedigree playing this well. Feels like everything's clicking here in Muncie, Indiana. The Ball State Cardinals, not only are they looking to go bowling, but they've got an outside chance of making that MAC championship game.
Oh, they absolutely do. And it's especially for the bowling aspect of it. They're 5-4, so you just have to get that 6th win. They'll have several opportunities to do that. You win one more, you're bowl eligible, so that's exciting. But you mentioned there is still that outside shot at the MAC title, and it's really probably going to come down to their next game at Toledo. That game could very well decide the MAC West in Toledo. They've been playing some good ball, so it'll definitely be a challenge. But if the Cardinals bring their best, it could definitely be a game that they can win, and potentially it'll take them all the way to Detroit. So, yeah, Koziol's playing well, the Cardinals are playing well, and they've got a shot to do some special things this year.
Certainly, Koziol and company, they're keeping it interesting. We're going to head back to the professional pitch, though, Ryan. 4 picks, 4 key games. And Ryan, we're going to start off with an interesting game. The Los Angeles Chargers, they'll go down to Atlanta. They'll take on the Falcons, the leaders of the NFC South currently. Who do you like in that one?
I like the Chargers, and it is an interesting matchup, but I just think it's going to be a game of matchup. That's going to be key. I think that Justin Herbert, even though that receiving group is banged up, I think he'll still be able to stretch the field and exploit that weak Atlanta pass defense. And also, what I think is going to really be key in this one, I think the Chargers get ahead early in this one and make the Falcons play from behind. And now, of course, every common sense NFL fan knows that playing from behind is never ideal. But with the Falcons, they run the ball 57.6% of the time. That's the second highest run rate in the league, behind only the Bears. So for a run-first team, especially playing from behind, could be problematic because some teams don't have the ability to score quickly, score in bunches. And the Falcons have done that sometimes, but I just think the Chargers are going to be able to do it more, put enough points on the board to keep the pressure on the Falcons and make them play from behind. And also an underrated part of this Chargers team, their front seven, I think that they're going to have an impact in this one and make the Falcons offense uncomfortable. But really what it comes down to for me is just I'm a guy who is high on this Chargers team coming in. I picked them to win the division before the season, and I stand by this pick. And I truly do think that, again, I know they're banged up right now, but when they're healthy, I really think that this Chargers team can go toe-to-toe with anyone in the NFL right now. So consider me someone who's a believer in the Chargers, and I still think they could potentially do something special this year. So give me the Chargers to win this one.
Well, Ryan, you mentioned a few things I want to hit on. One, when they're healthy, yes, they're a solid squad. But when was the last time we've seen this Chargers team really play fully healthy? They are going to be without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams this Sunday. And for me, you look at that, you talk about getting out to a lead. I don't see how they do that without their top two weapons. It was recorded Wednesday that Austin Eckler was limited at practice, so even if he's a little banged up, it feels like this offense, I mean, Rashawn Slater's out. It's just this entire offense is just a cartwheel of players coming in, coming out, and for me, it's going to come down to stability, and it's going to come down to the fact that this Falcons team, they're trotting out the same team every week. Yes, A.J. Terrell will be out this week, but who's really worried about Joshua Palmer as a wide receiver one? I mean, for me, you look at it, I look at it, it's Falcons all day. Atlanta, they're at home. It's going to be a good game. These are two teams on paper that I think are pretty evenly matched. They're going to have that home crowd. They're down in Atlanta. Give me the Falcons all day long.
Okay.
Moving to our second game, Ryan, the Seahawks, they're going to head to Arizona. A little bit of a division matchup here. Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, who do you like?
Well, this one's interesting, and I think before I even say who I pick, we should just talk about the fact that these two teams, they played fairly recently, and Seattle won that game 19-9 in Seattle. But I am going with the Cardinals in this one, and it's really just two things. One, now the Cardinals get the Seahawks at home. But two, they get the Seahawks with DeAndre Hopkins. And there's really just no question that with DeAndre Hopkins out there, you know, they're a different offense. He is truly a game changer for them. And I think that the presence of DeAndre Hopkins, having the game at home, I think that's going to flip the script, and the Cardinals get revenge on the Seahawks, earn the season series split, and get the win on Sunday. Give me the Cards.
Ryan, again, I mean, for me, DeAndre Hopkins or not, the Seahawks team, they're playing too good. Tariq Woolen, I mean, he has looked nothing short of phenomenal. The Seahawks' entire draft class is full of unicorns. Abraham Lucas, he's looked really good on the offensive line. Kenneth Walker, the current favorite to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. But how about Geno Smith? He's playing effective, efficient football. 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, currently 4th in the league in QB rating. I mean, sure, on paper, this Cardinals team, they've got a lot more talent. Kyler Murray, coming into the season, yeah, he's a heck of a lot better than Geno Smith. But we are now, 8 games into this season, and things are starting to you have to get rid of those preseason biases and just look at who's performing. This Seahawks team just beat a Giants team that only had 1 loss going into that. Sure, it's the Giants this, Giants that. The Seahawks, to me, they're legit, and I think that this is what cements them in that. They're going to beat the Cardinals. They're going to go on the road. 2 wins for them against the Cardinals this season, something they haven't done since quite a while now in the Pete Carroll era. I mean, that Kyler Murray, he's had a grip on the Seahawks in recent memory, but you know what? I think that's where this changes. Geno Smith, the 31-year-old, let him come in, let him cook, and he's certainly been cooking with gas this season.
I will say, I mean, you mentioned Geno Smith and you mentioned Pete Carroll. What a job that both of those guys have done. I mean, really, like Seattle, and you could say the same thing with Atlanta. And I know I picked against both these teams, but these are teams that we thought would be picking at the top of the draft, and now they're at the top of their divisions. So, again, even though I'm picking against them, I mean, those two teams definitely have my respect, and they've defied a lot of people's expectations.
Certainly, and I'm glad you called that out. Maybe just two different mentalities.
Yeah.
I'm buying into the fact that these teams are performing now. You're certainly looking on paper, and I mean, if you look at the Falcons versus the Chargers, certainly if you look at the Seahawks heading to Arizona, I mean, certainly you're picking the talented teams, but I'm just picking who's playing hot right now, and I think we'll maybe agree, maybe disagree here. Let's head into our next game, the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to take on Tampa Bay. They'll go to the Buccaneers. Who's going to win that one, Ryan?
I'm going to go with the Bucs, but I do it very hesitantly because it's just so hard to get behind either of these teams right now. And it's crazy that we're saying that at this point into the season because these two teams met in the playoffs last year. Now both of them are in jeopardy of missing the playoffs entirely. This game also features our 2 most recent Super Bowl champions and 2 teams with losing records. Again, just a crazy NFL season. And I know that we always say it as a cliche every year, like, oh, it's been a crazy year. But I think this year it's not just a cliche, it's a truth. So I am picking the Bucs. I think that's something you got to factor in there. Coming off of a Thursday night football game, so they have that mini bye, as people like to call it. And they're also at home, and the Rams are making that cross-country flight, which, you know, people always talk about that like it makes some huge impact. I don't really quite understand it, but, you know, I think data shows that those West Coast teams don't always like playing on the East Coast. So I think that stuff advantages the advantage goes to the Bucs, but also really what it comes down to is this game's not going to be a run-heavy game, so if you're a big running backs guy, this probably isn't going to be your thing because the Rams are 31 in rush yards per game above only the Bucs, who are 32. So going to be a big day for pass catchers, and I really just trust the Bucs offense to be able to spread the ball around a little bit more. And I know their offense hasn't looked great, but I think that Tom Brady will be able to use those receivers and dump it off to Leonard Fournette, if that doesn't work out. But the Rams, they've just been too reliant on Cooper Kupp. Because, yes, you know what you have in Cooper Kupp. You have a special player. You know you have that. But the defense also knows how special Cooper Kupp is. So give me the Bucs. They're at home. They're more rested. And I just trust their offense a little bit more to spread the wealth. The Rams also have a turnover rate of -5, a turnover differential, of -5 this year. So something to watch there as well. Hard to get excited about either of these teams. So give me the Bucs at home.
It's so weird to say hard to get excited about either of these teams, but it's so true. You mentioned typically a cliche, this is the craziest NFL season yet, but this season has truly been bonkers. And again, we're going to disagree. I'm going to go with the Rams.
I think it's fun when we didisagree. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to the season. It goes with what's been going on. I mean, so many games. This is why this segment's so fun. There's so many 50-50 matchups. The Rams, here's why I like them this week. One, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with the fact that Tom Brady, he hasn't looked himself. I mean, he's had the off-the-field issues. That's a whole different matter with Giselle. But,
yeah.
I mean, the Rams, for me, this is a Super Bowl team that's coming off of a Super Bowl victory. Sean McVay is probably coaching the best football in the league right now. And then for me, what it really comes down to, you look at the Buccaneers. They're going to be without Antoine Winfield. They're going to be without Russell Gage. They're going to be without Luke Godecki. And they're going to be without their starting tight end, Cameron Brate. I mean, yes, they have the guys that can fill those holes, but this is one of the most beat-up teams in football. Tristan Wirfs went down in the preseason. We've seen how much of an impact that's made on them. This Buccaneers team, they've had a hard time staying healthy. The Rams, they've just got a little bit more clicking for them right now. I think this is one of those games that the loser of this, they may end up on the outside looking in come postseason time. So this is a big game. Give me the Rams to step up at the biggest of stages. You mentioned they've got to go cross-country. Sean McVay statistically has been pretty good at that. Give me McVay, give me Stafford, give me Cooper Kupp, give me the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's a hard one to pick. This is the one when we found out the games we were picking this week. I spent the most time on this game, so we'll see.
Certainly, I mean, and rightfully so. Two teams coming into the year with very high expectations, maybe not meeting them. And you really could argue that for this next matchup too, Ryan. The Baltimore Ravens, yes, they've won 3 of their last 4, but still maybe not looking the part that a lot of people thought they would. They'll head to New Orleans. They'll take on the Saints.
Yeah, this is the Monday night game, and just an interesting storyline. Both of these teams' number 1 wide receiver out for the year. Rashad Bateman out, and Michael Thomas is out for the year. It's a foot injury for Bateman, a toe injury for Thomas. So tough blows for both of those teams. And I look at the Ravens, and I'm picking the Ravens in this one. They've won 3 of their last 4, and I just trust Lamar Jackson to make enough big plays. The Saints defense, they shined last week against the Raiders, got the shutout, but outside of that, they've been really up and down, inconsistent. So I trust Lamar Jackson more than I trust the Saints defense. And it feels like the Saints, I wouldn't even say they're rebuilding, but I do think this is definitely a transitional year for them. I think that, having Dennis Allen step up as the head coach after Sean Payton's retirement, it's new. And with the quarterback situation, is that a position they need to address in 2023? I think they're kind of figuring that out as this season goes on. So it's a bit of a weird, awkward stage for the Saints because they're not fully tearing it down and rebuilding, but at the same time, I don't think this team is fully ready to win, although they're in a weak NFC South, so who knows? They might sneak into the playoffs, but I just think the Ravens are the better team right now. I trust Lamar to make enough big plays, and I think Baltimore is just simply more ready to win right now. Give me the Ravens on Monday night.
Certainly. Ryan, this is the first one we're going to agree on.
Hey, okay, there we go.
You look at the records, yes, they're similar, but these two teams have came here in very different forms. You mentioned the quarterback play, maybe a bit of question for both teams. Lamar still hasn't got paid, and he's made it clear he wants that money, and I think he's starting to improve more and more every week why he deserves it. This Ravens team, you mentioned they're without Rashad Bateman as their wide receiver 1. I mean, who is he throwing the ball to? James Prochet? I mean, he has had really tough options out there, and he has made the most of them. I've really liked what I've seen from Lamar. He elevates those guys around him. Mark Andrews has looked great this season. Give me the Ravens. Give me that front 7. Give me Kyle Hamilton. That whole defense just to absolutely own either Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston. I know it's a game-time decision. I don't care what quarterback they give me. Give me Baltimore Ravens, and you know what? Give me them to win by 21 points.
Whoa,
This is one of those games. I sensed it out there, Ryan. I knew that this was a game of the week by the metrics. I always look at the metrics when I'm trying to decide the game of the week. This is the one that has supposedly the most importance because either team, it would really mean a lot for them in their division, in such tight divisions. But I've got to tell you, I just love the Ravens this week. Give me the Ravens. Give me them to blow out the Saints in New Orleans.
All right.
Next segment, Ryan, we're going to head over to the NFL trade deadline. This is a one-time segment, but it's one that I'm really excited about because, I mean, a lot happened at this year's deadline, Ryan.
Oh, yeah, I'm really glad that we're talking about it, but really, how could we not? I mean, this was a trade deadline that was truly unlike any trade deadline we've ever seen, the NFL trade deadline. You know, normally it's, you know, you get out of school or work or whatever, you check your phone and it's, you know, nothing happened, or like some backup defensive back got traded for a 6th round pick in 3 years. But this was completely the opposite. You know, I was, you know, watching my TV, counting down the seconds until 4 p.m. Eastern. It was truly an exciting trade deadline, so I can't wait to get talking about it.
Certainly, and I think the trade that maybe headlined the entire deadline and happened a little earlier in the week, we had a chance to talk about it a little bit last week, but we'll dig deeper into it here. Who do you think won this trade, Ryan? Christian McCaffrey, he's now a 49er, but the 49ers, they certainly gave up a lot for him. They gave up a 2, a 3, a 4 in 2023, and then that 5th round pick in 2024.
Yeah, and I know I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but this is a trade that makes sense for both teams. And I know that's kind of boring, but just look at the direction that these teams are in. San Francisco, you know, they were in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs not too long ago. They were in the NFC Championship last year. This is a team that knows that they're close, they're well coached, they play good defense, and they know that they're ready to win now, and they maybe sense some weakness in the NFC West that they want to capitalize on. So it's a lot of draft capital, but I mean, you know what the Rams saying was about the draft picks. I can't say it right here, but you know what it is. If not, look it up. You know, basically the version that I'll say here is the Rams said, hey, we don't care about those draft picks right now. We want to go win the Super Bowl, and hey, if we win the Super Bowl, no one's going to be complaining about the draft capital. So I think the 49ers are kind of adopting that mentality from their NFC West foe. It's a haul that might make you cringe with the amount of picks, especially because the 49ers already didn't have a 1st-round pick from the Trey Lance trade-up. So it's a heavy amount of capital, but I mean, look at what he's done already. The historic performance against the Rams that CMC had, and you know, when you want to win now, you got to go all in. So I respect the 49ers for doing that. And for the Panthers, look, it's a full teardown. You got questions at pretty much every position. So even if you have CMC, you're not a CMC away from being a playoff team. And even if you are a playoff team, you're not doing anything in the playoffs. So tough to part with the franchise-changing player, but it was in the best interest of both teams.
Certainly, this is one of those rare times I feel like a trade really did make sense for both sides. You mentioned, I mean, everyone wants to talk about the Rams. They won the Super Bowl last year, and it's certainly a copycat league. And especially in division, it was interesting to see the 49ers really take a page out of the Rams' book, ship the whole draft class off for somebody. This time it's CMC. And, you know, going into this episode, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe it is just an even trade. But if I had to lean one side, you know what? I really like what the Panthers are doing, because we're going to get to another trade later in this one, which for me kind of reestablished the values of what some of these picks are. And you know what? Why not talk about it right now? The reason that I think that the Panthers got a little bit more back than I would have expected is because the Bears, they shipped off Roquan Smith to the Ravens for solely a 2023 second and a 2023 fifth. And yes, Ryan, I'm aware he only had 1 year left on that contract, but for me, this is a smash. This is a home run for the Ravens. I mean, they just got the best linebacker in football and didn't even part with the one. I mean, the Seahawks, they had to give up 2 firsts, a third, and a starting safety just to get Jamal Adams. To me, I mean, this Roquan Smith trade, it just made it seem like draft capital has such different values to different franchises, and I really like CMC to the 49ers. I do. I think he'll be a good fit there. I like Kyle Shanahan, but for me, give me the draft picks.
Okay, yeah, I respect it. And, you know, you mentioned the Roquan trade, and I think that's one where maybe why the Bears didn't get it first is because of that contract situation where, you know, maybe if he, you know, plays in Baltimore but then decides for whatever reason, you know, I still want to test free agency, you know, you don't have that guarantee. So it's interesting. I mean, still for the Bears, though, there was kind of that period in training camp where Roquan wasn't too happy, and then he requested the trade, and then, you know, he kind of withdrew the request and said, okay, I'll play, and he did play, and he played well for the Bears, and I'm sure he'll do the same for the Ravens. So just another thing, it's truly a case-to-case basis. Like you said, different teams are in different situations. They place different values on different amount of draft capital. So this is one where I think the Ravens should be excited, but if you're a Bears fan upset about this, just know that Roquan was probably leaving in free agency anyway, so it's good that you got this capital for him instead of just the compensatory pick that you might have gotten for free agency.
You know, Ryan, I couldn't have put that better myself. That was a really good way to put it. It makes sense for both sides. The Bears probably wouldn't have retained Roquan Smith. For the Ravens, I mean, sure, every fan wanted them to add a wide receiver for Lamar Jackson. This is a great second-place trophy. I mean, Roquan Smith, the best linebacker in the league, he will instantly elevate that already great defense. I really like what he'll bring there. And another guy who can elevate a defense, Ryan, let's talk about Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins. This was the biggest package we saw sent in the entirety of the deadline. The Dolphins gave up that 2023 first from the 49ers that they gave to the Dolphins to move up for Trey Lance, a 2024 4th-round pick, and Chase Edmonds for Bradley Chubb from Denver, and Denver also chucked in a 2025 5th. Who do you like in that one?
I really do like the Dolphins, and I think it's because Denver shouldn't even be in this spot where they want to trade away a really good defensive end in Bradley Chubb. This is a direct result of the Broncos being a disappointment, underperforming. You know, there was rumors that, you know, if they, you know, lost that London game to Jacksonville, that Nathaniel Hackett could have been fired. So I'm giving the Dolphins the win on this one because the Dolphins are actually playing some good football. Denver has not looked good, even in the games that they've won. They've been ugly wins. They haven't looked pretty, and they've just squeaked by. So this trade is a reflection of the Broncos management's disappointment in how their team is playing. Because if Denver's 6-2, if Denver's 5-3, I don't think they trade Bradley Chubb. So it is disappointing that it came to this for the Broncos and for the Dolphins. They got, you know, a lot of draft capital from, you know, the Trey Lance trade, you know, with the 49ers moving up, but they've turned it into some playmakers. Bradley Chubb, also Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill already can be connected to that trade. So I think it's a home run for the Dolphins. They already signed him to an extension, so it seems like they're going to have him for a while. And for Denver, just the fact that this is even where you're at, you're 3-5 and you traded one of your best players, it's got to be tough.
Ryan, for me, I'm going to have to go in a completely different direction with that. I like the fact that you mentioned it's been a disappointment for Denver because it has. But I think that that's where they stepped in and decided we've got to do something. I mean, if you just continue to disappoint, why keep Bradley Chubb on the roster? For me, this was way too much to give up for a guy who really hasn't been elite since his rookie season back in 2018.
He is still fairly young, though.
Yes, he's still on that rookie deal. You mentioned he got that extension. But, I mean, for me, you look at Bradley Chubb, right? I like the guy a lot. He's a good guy, good player, and I think he'll do a lot for Miami. But a first-round pick plus more capital and a running back that's going to be in the mix there in Denver is way too much to give up for Chubb. When I saw he was traded, got the report from Ian Rappaport, I was like, okay, probably going to be a second, maybe a second and a fifth, just like Roquan. I saw that they gave up a first, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. That's too much to give for a guy like Bradley Chubb. He hasn't been effective enough. I mean, until he proves me otherwise, this is a trade that, yes, the Broncos have been disappointed. Yes, if they had a better record, maybe they don't make this move. But neither of those things are true. And for me, give me the Broncos side of this deal all day long. They moved off a guy who really has not lived up to the number 5 overall draft pick. I mean, it's just the truth. I really like what they were able to get back for him. A first plus for a guy who hasn't lived up to his first-round draft capital.
Yeah, and, you know, that's fair. I mean, I think that, again, there's just so many different perspectives on these things. And as I always say whenever we talk about things, like whether it's draft prospects or trades, you know, time will tell. I think just with Miami, getting him there, getting him, you know, on a team that, you know, is actually performing to expectations and just allowing him to be there and already signing the extension so you know he wants to be there. And for Denver, I will say the draft haul is nice, but again, they only want those draft picks because they gave up so much for Russell Wilson, who's not played well. So two different kind of philosophies on it. I see where you're coming from. I think you see where I'm coming from. So again, fascinating trade, but definitely one of the big blockbusters of the day.
Right, and Ryan, I saved the weirdest one for last because this one, when it struck my phone, I was like, are you kidding me? I gave you a call.
You broke this
because
news to me.
I was what in the world? TJ Hockenson, he's traded in the division to the Vikings for a 2023 second and a 2024 third, but the Lions, they also sent a 2023 fourth-round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth-round pick if the Vikings are to extend TJ Hockenson. And I don't know about you, but for me, this is a slam dunk trade for the Vikings.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And, you know, again, you broke the news to me, so I'm glad that we're talking about this one here on the show. And, again, I don't really mind the interdivision thing, and if you remember, on draft night, the Lions traded up with the Vikings to go get Jamison Williams, so these two teams have some trade history. Maybe that helped facilitate the trade a little bit easier. So when I see that draft capital, and I see the Lions giving up picks as well, I just can't fully understand it. I get it. Detroit's not a TJ Hockenson away from being a contending team. They're still in that rebuilding phase. But Hockenson's a guy who's really a red zone threat. He's a good pass catcher. He's a guy that they drafted. There was no sense that he wanted out. He's still a young player drafted in 2019. So this guy could have been their franchise tight end for, who knows, maybe the next decade in the best case scenario. So it just seems a little odd. I would probably think that the Vikings would have initiated this trade. I don't think the Lions were actively shopping him. So I understand it, you know, for a rebuilding team, never a bad thing to get draft capital, but a young playmaker like TJ Hockenson, I have a tough time parting ways with him. Give me the Vikings as the winners of this one.
Yeah, especially in a league where it feels like it's so hard to come by good pass-catching tight ends. I mean, TJ Hockenson, he's one of the rare, top 5 or 6 tight ends in the league right now who can block and catch. I love this for the Vikings, especially given that Irv Smith Jr., their current starting tight end, is now on the IR. They moved him there right after the Hockenson trade. He had an injury that wasn't broken to the public. Well, now they have a huge upgrade at the tight end position. And that offense, it's going to be scary with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, and now you add T.J. Hawkinson to the
Kirk
mix.
Cousins is happy, I can tell you that.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, they are cooking up there in Minnesota. Speaking about cooking, let's go to our fan favorite. We're going to go to the last segment of the show, Fantasy Football Starts and Sits. And Ryan, I want to start with you. We're going to do with one start and one sit each, so this has got to be one you feel pretty confident in. Who's the guy you're looking to start this week?
Well, it's a guy that you kind of talked down a little bit during one of your picks. It's Joshua Palmer. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Chargers against the Falcons this week. And again, you look at just the situation. Mike Williams is out. Keenan Allen's had a nagging hamstring injury for a long time. He was out for a while, came back, but it apparently got worse during the bye week. So Joshua Palmer is their wide receiver 1. And again, we alluded to it, during our 4-pick segment. The Falcons' pass defense is not good. They give up almost 307 passing yards per game. That's not a good unit. Again, Justin Herbert can make every throw you need. And I know Joshua Palmer's not a flashy name if you're not familiar. 2021 third-round pick out of Tennessee, but I just think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to get targets against a bad pass defense with a team that likes to throw the ball. So give me Joshua Palmer to have a big day.
Yeah, I know I ragged on him a little bit earlier, but in terms of fantasy value, I love this pick, Ryan, because you mentioned he's the wide receiver 1. I had said, he's not a great wide receiver 1. He's not, but in terms of fantasy output, this is the exact guy you're trying to plug in and start. A.J. Terrell out for the Falcons this week.
Another good point.
He should have a very favorable matchup. Justin Herbert will be looking his way because he will be the number 1 option in this offense, especially if Austin Eckler is banged up. I like that pick, and I'm going to stick with a receiver of my own, Ryan. Give me Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets. I talked about Zach Wilson having a bounce-back week. It's going to go through this guy. Corey Davis, he's out this Sunday. And when Corey Davis was out last week, Garrett Wilson was the focal point of this offense. He has a 26.7% target per route run rate this season, which is second among rookies to only Chris Olave. And without Corey Davis this week, I could see that number easily going over 30%. Zach Wilson is starting to build that connection. He looks his way more and more. And now with Breece Hall down for the year against a really good Bills defense, you have to imagine this Jets team to stay in this game. They're going to have to pass the ball, and that only means good things for Garrett Wilson in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to pass the ball, and that would definitely be good for Garrett Wilson because Buffalo's going to put up points. And if you want to keep up with Josh Allen in that offense, you got to throw the ball, you got to stretch the field. So I like that one as well.
Ryan, we got the positives out of the way. That was the fun part.
Yeah.
Now we've got to go to the negatives. Here's a guy, all of your leagues, you're looking to sit, not making the lineup.
Yeah, I'm sitting Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, and it really just comes down to a couple things. One, the Titans' run defense is pretty good. They allow an average of 89.1 rushing yards per game. That's the second best rate in the league, behind only the 49ers. And when you look at just the way the Chiefs' offense is being run, Clyde is kind of starting to take a back seat. Let's look at their last 2 games. So week 6, the snap distribution, Jerick McKinnon had 29 snaps, Clyde 28, and the rookie Isaiah Pacheco had 10. Then in week 7, McKinnon with 28, Pacheco with 19, Clyde with only 17. So it just kind of seems like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's a talented player. He can make plays out of the backfield. But at the end of the day, it really seems that the Chiefs are starting to move in a different direction at the running back position. And I'm not saying Clyde's not going to play at all or he's not going to get in, but I just think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is becoming more of a situational back, a third down back. And if you do start him, I feel like it's a very touchdown-reliant start where you're really, really banking on that third down dump-off pass on 3rd and goal that he takes into the end zone, which could happen, but I just don't think it's a very safe start. I would sit him if you could afford it, and I understand, it's that time of the year where there's a lot of bye weeks, there's injuries, so, it's not the worst thing in the world if you have to put him in there. I just think it's a risky, touchdown-reliant start, so I'd sit Clyde Edwards-Helaire if you can this week.
Certainly, and I'm also going to talk about a running back committee you want to stay away from. You talked about how the snap share has just changed so much there. Jonathan Taylor just ruled out for the Colts this week. I already kind of bagged on the AFC South a little bit earlier. It's just going to get worse. I want you to sit just about every Colts player this week. I don't want any of them in your starting lineup. I'm going to focus on the running backs, but I would not be mad about sitting Michael Pittman on the bench. I would not be mad about sitting anybody on the bench. I mean, regardless of if he's playing or not, this Colts running back tandem, I do not like it one bit this week. They traded for Zach Moss, which, by the way, that trade in and of itself, Colts fans weren't happy about. They sent away Nyheim Hines, got a 6th-round pick, and a much worse running back in Zach Moss. I mean, for me, you just look at the talent. This Colts team, they're playing New England, one of the best front sevens in the league, and Matthew Judon, he's playing on a different level right now. Then you look at the Colts offensive line. They're dead last in just about every metric, and these 2 running backs in Deion Jackson and Zach Moss, they don't show me any talent. They don't pop off the page. I think this Colts team is going to get absolutely crushed this Sunday by the Patriots, and I don't think the offense will have anything to do in any part of the success.
Yeah, it's just, again, with the craziness of the year, the fact that, Sam Ehlinger is starting and the Colts offensive line is not doing well because, up until this year, I would think of the Colts offensive line as a strength, led by Quentin Nelson, but now they have been a disappointment. Obviously, the Matt Ryan experiment didn't work out as hoped, and they're not running the ball like they used to. So, yeah, I have a hard time getting behind the Colts this week as well.
Right, and Ryan, I really appreciate that. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm AJ Swiatek, joined by Ryan Stojetz. This has been the HB Toss, and Ryan, I really appreciate it. It was a fun one.
Oh, it absolutely was a fun one. I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Certainly. HB Toss brought to you by the creative storytellers of Ball State Sports Link. For now, we're signing off.